So I want to introduce one of our local jurors who's going to talk more about the jury process and kick us off with the impact recognition moment. So Liz Ogbu.
Glad to see I have a cheering squad. Hi, my name is Liz Ogbu, and I feel like I should have a hat that says I'm the local juror. I am born and raised in Oakland, and I'm still based there. Yay, Oakland, come on. I run a social impact design consultancy called Studio O, and I am proud to be a part of this internationally recognized jury. As you probably saw from the live stream, or if you were there in person yesterday, we are a very opinionated bunch, but also very thoughtful. And it has been our pleasure to be able to take the time to look at these projects, to be able to see the hard work that has been done, both on the part of the design teams and all of the stakeholders who have been engaged. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the jury process before I introduce the groups that are going to present the recognitions to the various teams. We started a year ago. We were brought together to actually review all the submissions, or a handful of the submissions, to choose the final teams that ended up participating in this competition. Over the course of the year, we've been engaged to provide expert advice about different ways to move things forward. We've participated in critiques of the teams. And then most recently, we've spent the last 2 days reviewing what has actually been accomplished and trying to provide some input of things that we could that we think can be used to move forward. This morning, we spent a lovely 4 hours together in deliberation, and our goal was to really discuss each project, talking about its merits. Overall, all the teams we felt like really engaged in tackling these problems, trying to identify what were ways that you could actually achieve multi-benefit stakeholders and impact, and talking about different ways of engagement, and also looking at the scale of the problem, from what were the chronic stresses to what needs to be done to actually address acute shocks. And so out of that, we felt that it's hard because you talk about the idea of this being a competition, and in competitions we always talk about there's going to be a single winner. But our goal is really to make sure that there is a set of projects across the Bay Area that are actually implemented. And so what's going to happen here is that we're going to talk to you about some of the things that we think the various projects have done that actually represent a model. And then you have to see me again at the end of this, because I'm going to talk about what we thought were some unifying themes that we believe is important for everyone to be able to take hold of as we think about how to move forward. So with that, I'm going to introduce the first juror, Hella. She comes to us from GEL, and she's going to introduce the recognition for the Bionic team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Helle Søholt. I lead the GEL practice. I'm based in Copenhagen, so very honored to be invited all the way from Scandinavia to join this jury. I do also lead a small team working here out of the Bay in San Francisco, the GEL practice. So I feel slightly local, even though I hope still to be able to add an international perspective. But I'm very honored to present the impact recognition to Team Bionic on behalf of the entire jury. We have 3 points that we would like to highlight for the Bionic team. First and foremost, we feel that this team in particular makes the flood risk very evident. It draws attention to people hurt now by climate change, and to the large percentage of the tax base, people's homes and businesses that will be impacted by rising sea levels. And we also recognize the hydrological wave modeling and the whole sort of research that has come in as a background to the design development of this proposal. Secondly, we want to highlight the fact that this team have really impressively engaged the community. Asking the community's questions that directly influences the design is really, really impressive. And lastly, highlighting that places of rescue, like community center, schools, churches, are a way of elevating those places, protecting those places as shared nodes in this community with focus on social connectivity. The Piggleweed Park as a great starting point for all those social and physical, environmental, ecological investments is a fantastic project that we hope can be a great starting point for this community. So, accepting on the behalf of Team Bionic, I hope that Marin County Supervisor Kate Sears will come to the stage. Congratulations. The stage is yours.
Yeah. All right. So as the team is coming up, I've got to tell you, I was so excited that Bionic was the team that was assigned to Marin County to work in our San Rafael area, because they had the most wonderful application video that did an interview with people on the street about what they knew about sea level rise, and it was truly horrifying. The lack of information. Like, we have water in our community, and so that was, if there wasn't enough proof that we really needed people working on the ground, that video said it all. And I just want to really appreciate this team, because I know they got so involved in our community, really learned about the canal, interacted with folks, and I think have come up with some fantastic ideas about how to celebrate that community and protect it going forward. And also have ideas that raised a lot of our understanding and sensitivity about the impact of sea level rise on some of the mix of our businesses and how that will affect our communities going forward. So thank you so much for the expertise and the sensitivity and the awareness of community that you've brought to Marin County. And I hope that we can find a path forward to make a lot of these ideas real for our communities. Thank you for Resilient by Design by honoring us with the work of this team. And I think I get to give this wonderful platter, for hard, great work. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Cynthia Smith. I'm another jury member. I'm from New York City. I am a curator at Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum. I'm the curator of socially responsible design at the museum. And I experienced rebuild by design when post-Superstorm Sandy. And I was really intrigued by the work that was done. It seemed like an innovative approach to addressing these major resiliency issues. And so I was excited when I was invited to participate in the Bay Area Resiliency by Design. So I'm very, very pleased tonight. I'm honored, I'm humbled to recognize the permaculture and social equity team for their impact in community capacity building. A really inspiring group. Theirs was a clear model for real engagement with residents as equal partners. They're setting a new standard for co-creation and mutual capacity building, grounded in community, context, and history. It's an amazing, it was, if any of you had been there yesterday to hear the presentation. It was incredible. Peace. Peace that realigns power distribution. It's centered on developing design solutions which enable skill building and ownership by people directly impacted by those design decisions. With mutual respect, acceptance of local knowledge, a commitment to inclusion at the core of their work, this team demonstrates a community-led process to equip one of the most vulnerable neighborhoods in Marin County in their efforts to address climate resiliency. I am very pleased to present this beautiful, I don't know if you saw this is what we're giving out to each of the groups, to Marin County Supervisor Kate Spears and the team of PSED, Permaculture and Social Equity team.
So I really am the luckiest county supervisor who's engaged with Resilient by Design, because you saw the Bionic project that we got in San Rafael, and then I got PSED in Southern Marin, in Marin City in my district. And I was so incredibly excited when I first met this team because of their, not only their expertise on issues relating to permaculture, sea level rise, and climate change, but their extraordinary experience in community organizing. And the outcome of the efforts with the fantastic collaboration with members of our community has really been extraordinary. I consider this a model of engagement for all of our communities, and how you really get residents to learn about sophisticated, not easy subjects, to get excited about it, and to plan for their future in a way that has complete engagement from the grassroots level. So this team deserves a lot of awards, and I'm really, really happy to be on this stage with them, and look forward to working together as we go forward to make some very sensible ideas a reality in the short run, and to make some really big think ideas a reality in the long term. So thank you all so much.
Hi, my name is Roberto Maurice. I am from Chile. I'd like to thank the organization for this invitation. Chile is quite connected to California because of the ocean, the wine, but also because of natural disasters. After our earthquake in 2010, we started a new way to understand our territory. I think in the States, after Katrina, you leave a kind of big bang for resilience, especially for the first step with Resilient by Design in the East Coast. I really hope that this experience of Resilient by Design will be a new way to understand the territory and to think more in resilience, a lot more than rebuild. I would like to announce the Impact Recognition Award to Common Ground team. The Grand Bay Way project gives us a challenging vision for the way with a creative project and a creative design. The proposal is presented as an approach to the incremental and instantaneous dynamic of the Bay Area shoreline. The jury distinguishes the project because its greatest ecological potential and sensitive perspective of the interaction among nature, infrastructure, and people. The team has a strong position with respect to the evolution of the shoreline and its role in the reduction of risk and the conservation of the wetlands, taking advantage of them This should be a real net ecosystem gain, creating a 21st century regional park. This audacious project should give to the Bay Area residents a place of great value and biodiversity. The main strategy is to build a new solution of transportation infrastructure with multi-hazard considerations, improving the accessibility and the mobility of the area. The jury wants to acknowledge the work of the team integrating different perspectives from the diverse group of interests: environmental advocates, local communities, landowners, and public agencies. They have demonstrated a wide understanding of the complexities of the area, identifying opportunities and critical barriers for the implementation. This SMART project is a good example of an ambitious but a fundable initiative. We encourage to the Bay Area community to take this proposal very seriously and collaborate with this transformative effort. We believe that the Grand Bay project should be a concrete example of resilient by design for the world. I would like to invite to Jake Mackenzie, Mayor of Rohnert Park and MTC Commissioner.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. This is a very interesting project. It's complex, it's political, it involves 4 counties, and it ain't going to be easy to put into place. And we all know that. You all know that because you worked with all of the stakeholders. You worked with all of the people with whom we are going to have to deal. Let me declare my interest. I'm from Sonoma County. I'm chair of MTC. I'm on the SMART Board of Directors. I'm on Greenbelt Alliance's Board of Directors. This is something that we want to see happen, that I want to see happen, but it ain't going to be easy. But I'll tell you what, we now have a vision. We now have a possibility for the future. So my applause to all of you.
Those plates are so beautiful. I want to steal one for myself. Good evening. My name is Sara Ichioka. I'm an urban strategist, curator, and researcher currently based in Singapore. But much more importantly, I'm a Bay Area native, born and bred in the East Bay, and a very proud alumna of the Oakland and Berkeley public school system. It's my honor, along with the other members of the jury, to commend the home team working in North Richmond. We'd like to appreciate publicly the way in which this proposal starts from and centers on the potent community-led legacy work to overcome decades of disinvestment and environmental injustice. Rather than prescribing grand gestures, this design team have used their skills to connect, enhance, visualize, and communicate these locally grown projects to a larger audience. Respecting the North Richmond Community Advisory Board's desires to develop and defend hard-won self-determination and self-sufficiency, This RBD submission advances arguments for the importance of modestly scaled but potentially highly resonant interventions, including but not limited to urban forestry that begins to mitigate scandalously high levels of air pollution from adjacent industry and road traffic. It ensures thermal comfort in the face of rising temperatures and softens the edges of brutal transport infrastructure with a beautiful biophilic buffer zone. It also includes new and enhanced routes for human-powered and human-scaled mobility and safer access to sites of recreation, education, and local cultural heritage. Finally, and this is something that we spent a lot of time talking about this morning, it introduces a typological approach to the regional housing affordability crisis, in this case, the split lot proposal, which manages to multiply access to home ownership opportunities within single existing plots with specific sites and partners already in dialogue for development. Members of the jury were keen to see how future implementation of the project with the city and local partners will give tangible form to several ideas that were raised at a conceptual level yesterday. A return to community as a preferred replacement for the traditional return to capital as a measurement of investment success, and also the intriguing aspirations that were articulated to build on existing Richmond efforts and successes to relocalize systems of water and biomass, labor, and capital. So it's my great pleasure now to welcome to this stage Ms. Sequoia Erasmus, who's Director of Community Engagement for Richmond Mayor Tom Butt's office.
Thank you very much for that great introduction. My name is Sequoia, and I'm here on behalf of Mayor Tom Butt, and I got an opportunity to be a part of the Community Advisory Board, and I just want to say that two big takeaways that I have from the process were, number one, gratitude to the Methuen team for coming into the process maybe with a preconceived notion of what it was they were coming into, but at the moment that the Community Advisory Board recommended maybe a shift in focus and strategy, they did that. And I feel like what you witnessed yesterday is a representation of that deeper listening that happened, which makes the second point come forward, which is what happens when we put community as the center of the planning process in a true way, in a meaningful way. When we say, what do you want? What is it that you're already doing? And you build upon that. And we have an opportunity working with Methuen and any of you in the audience, actually, to build upon that. So moving forward as planners, as thinkers, as folks truly engaged in the resilience process, what happens when community is at the center of the planning process? Thank you. Thank you for the plate.
Are you cold? I am, but also very, very excited. So, and please be with us a bit. I know it's tough, you all have wine and conversations, but these teams and their coalitions worked so hard, they're worth a bit of your time. They are worth a lot of your time. And they are worth a lot of your money too. We have to build these projects. Okay, I'm Henk Ovink. I don't live here, but I know the region. from the time I visited the United States for the first time in 1985. And after the earthquake, a couple of years later, I saw the devastating impact here. Friends and family of mine lived here at that time. I have the honor to be on the jury too. I started Rebuild by Design in New York, and I'm totally thrilled that it moved to the West Coast as well. I'm here to acknowledge the All Bay Collective. 11 partners. Imagine a team of 11 partners working here in San Leandro Bay, which is just around the corner. A bay that is not well understood or not well acknowledged. And this team had to find a way to bring the bay back into the hearts and mind of the people around it. Now, bringing that bay back in the hearts and the mind of the people that work and live and travel and go around it is tough. So how do you do it? And they found a way forward that is so Dutch that I'm very honored as a Dutchman to acknowledge that, because it was all about the commons. Now, in the US that might be a little tough, but on the West Coast actually okay. But this commons created the opportunity to come together culturally, to come together environmentally, but to also come together institutionally. And they not only found a way forward to bring everybody in the bay, in the water, you could say, really live it, but they also found a way forward to institutionalize that way of collaboration. So the jury wants to acknowledge all those parts. Find a way to bring it together in this metaphor of the common that became a thing, an environment, but at the same time also an institution. And they found this community benefit district as a reference to institutionalize the way that this common ground, so much needed in any form of resiliency, could actually be the platform to move this project forward. This will not be easy. And I know the team experienced the uneasiness of such a tough part, but they got around this, and they deserve an applause only for that, but also for finding a way to bring culture, environment, and institutions forward by design. So I want to invite the team on stage. Yes, a big hand of applause. And I also want to, yeah, okay, more, yeah. It's always fun, eh? Lots of people, come, yeah, go. And I also want to invite Alameda Mayor Trish Spencer. There she is, yeah. And Mayor, you have the honor to hand this to the team and acknowledge them in what they did. The floor is yours. I'll take it.
Okay, he's already offering to take it. But before we get there, I'm going to welcome all of you to the great city of Alameda. And I really want to commend this team for stepping up and looking big picture at that. And I really hope all of you had the opportunity to see that, because all of a sudden it's not Alameda, Oakland, San Leandro. It's all of us trying to actually come up, and this is what this team did. They blurred everything and pulled back big time, and then it's like, okay, then what's the best way of moving forward as an area? And that's what you see there. So I hope all of you have the opportunity to check out their plan. I really want to commend them and all of you for doing this and helping me and I hope everyone to visualize the path forward. It's very different from what we do currently. So thank you very much.
And let's focus our energy here on our next juror, David.
It is kind of cold, and it's nice to be in San Francisco. I lived here a couple of times. I'm from New Orleans, Wagner and Ball, louder even. I'm from New Orleans. Wagner and Ball is the architectural practice that I enliven at times. I come from a place, though, that flooded, as you know, and I remember well returning home where my father was after that event when the levees broke. And he said to me, I didn't know what had happened because I'd been away. He said, I always thought it would be San Francisco. You know, what would be the city destroyed? No one really thought New Orleans would be the city gone. I think San Francisco has the knowledge of the earthquake, but not the gradual erosive character of sea level rise. Dour enough, but serious this business is, it's my honor to present the award, the Impact Recognition Award, to Public Settlement for their work on Alameda Creek. The jury notes this as a clear, practical, actionable project that can be a model for the rest of the region around the bay and beyond. The prospect of marsh to mud to open water for someone who lives in the Mississippi River Delta is real and threatening. The question is, can a healthy marsh outgrow sea level rise? This project recognizes the power of mud, the creek, the river, the power of scale, and the power to start. It's no small feat, and it will be no small feat, to bring the canal, this canal, back into the public arena. To bring the people back to this place, to create a larger public space network, and to make a world of wonder and exploration. It proposes mud rooms, flood rooms, terraced trails, seasonal bridges, pebble dunes, breaches, beaches, and red-legged frogs. The jury recognizes this as a model for research, design, and practice, with models within it of streams, with bank stabilization measures that demonstrate depth and flow, denture-like devices that show what a terrace stabilization system can be, and has ambition to measure sediment dissolved in water. So if I venture in the slipstream, the project makes all of us, at least I, but makes the jury, want to be landscape architects. So I, with emotion, say congratulations to my friends at Public Settlement and invite here Rocky Fernandez on behalf of Senator Bob Wieckowski to recognize the team. So I think you have this.
My name is Rocky Fernandez. I'm the district director for State Senator Bob Wieckowski. Both my boss and I have been kind of obsessed with climate change and adaptation for about a decade. Senator Wieckowski couldn't make it tonight, but he was there in Richmond when they unveiled the teams that were going to be a part of this challenge. And he's been, as the chair of the Environmental Quality Committee and the Budget Subcommittee, who basically funds all these projects we're trying to do around both climate adaptation and mitigation, has been working really hard to make sure that there's funding so we can get all these projects to happen. It's also... I also know the South Bay Sponge also is partially in Senator Wieckowski's district. We haven't forgot you. But a couple of months ago, I was at the poster presentations over in San Francisco, and I was looking around for what projects actually affected our district. And having known from the Oro Loma Sanitary Districts project in San Lorenzo and several other research that sediment and being able to build up the resiliency within the Bay is so crucial, and it's so underfunded, and people haven't been thinking out of the box on how to make this happen. So when I saw public sediment, it just made sense that we should make this project happen. So I'm super excited to be here today. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Alameda County along the creek with the fish ladder groundbreaking. So I got to learn a little bit more about how we're trying to not only get rid of some of the concrete, which we all loved for a long time, but also make sure that there's actually fish passage along these corridors so that we can restore those things. And so I'm excited to be here today to support public sediment and congratulate you on the work that you did. I have this certificate from the Senate. In addition to this, as a recognition. And while I don't necessarily want to trigger the president, I do want to say that this project is important for building a template for the rest of these projects and our fish corridors and our watersheds throughout the Bay. So I want to build a template. We want to unlock Alameda Creek. And we want to make mud sexy again. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Denise Reed. With the University of New Orleans. I live and work in Louisiana and have dabbled in things around the Bay Area and the Delta for some years. I apologize that I was not able to be there in person for the presentations yesterday. I was one of the several hundred people watching the live stream, though, and got to see my fellow jurors do their thing, and I'm very pleased to hear that. I'm not talking in the mic? Yeah. Okay. Eat it. Now. So I'm very pleased to be here today, and it's a great honor to present the Impact Recognition Award to the Field Operations team. So this is the South Bay. An area that kind of is a little bit remote from many of the other areas that the other teams focused on, but it's an area that has some really great characteristics, some great assets that represent icons, I think, of the Bay. The commercial salt ponds of the South Bay, you know, Moffett Field with its legacy as a Naval Air Station, and the great hangars, and now the great research facility. But the South Bay also, of course, is now the hub of innovation and technology and promise for the future. And so the team had to pull these characteristics of the system in the South Bay together with the challenge of water. The opportunity, perhaps, that water represents for recreation, for environment, and for quality of life as a community of resource, but also, unfortunately, the hazards that water represents. From the floods coming down from the coastal watersheds, and obviously the threat of flooding from the bay, king tides, storms, waves, etc. So they had to put all these together, and they did it in a very imaginative way by using water and sediment as those connective tissues, if you like. The jury was extremely impressed, as it seems were many, many others who engaged with the team during the process, about this wonderful metaphor that they developed for their project. A metaphor that's playful and powerful, and that obviously communicated well across generations in the South Bay. The South Bay sponge. the idea that natural environments can both absorb floodwaters and dissipate energy and really function to help keep things viable down there in the South Bay. That was a concept that the team obviously worked really well. You see the trailer outside, and something that the jury felt was really, really compelling about the project. But it's more than just about the sponge. It's about how they managed to link things together down there, about how they linked the streams to the bay, how they linked the people to the environment and the aquatic environment that that water resource represents. But they also thought about how to use strategically one of the most important, valuable resources, and this is recognized across many teams in the bay system, sediment. They introduced this concept of the soil swap. The idea that you work out where you have an excess and where you have a need, and you actually move it to where you need it. The idea that you can exchange and manage sediment around this system is something that they really worked very well. Importantly, though, as far as implementation is concerned, they also identified this cooperative funding model. The area that they looked at down there in the South Bay, many jurisdictions of different types. They worked out how to bring them together. They talked about leveraging the many existing projects that have been planned down there, modifying them where necessary, but also identifying opportunities for new investment for those particularly down there in the South Bay who really have the resources that can be invested to make a big difference. So it's my great honor then to welcome the field operations team up to the podium here and to present the plaque to Mr. Vincent Jin, who's the Deputy Operations Officer with the Santa Clara Valley Water District.
Thank you very much. I'm Vince Jin with Santa Clara Valley Water District, and it's my privilege here to recognize the hard and tremendous work of the field operations team, and also to be here to celebrate with everyone. Their work has been impressive, and they were able to take a complicated issue that spans geography, jurisdiction, and generations, and translate that to reach our community. And for that, we're very grateful. These issues have been such difficulty in communication, but from the very start, the team recognized that that is a crucial element. It was simply not enough to come up with good ideas. Those ideas had to reach our family, our friends, our children, and they demonstrated a conviction to communication. There's an example right here, right outside, an example that we can witness of their conviction, and that's the Sponge Hub trailer that catches the attention. And it's that ability to take these complicated ideas and translate them so that our people and our community can understand them, and we're very, very grateful. So on behalf of Santa Clara Valley Water District, thank you very much to the field operations team for everything you've done, but especially for your conviction to communicate and connect with our community. So thank you. And also thank you to the Resilient by Design team for making this happen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Jerry Schubel, President and CEO of Aquarium of the Pacific. In spirit. Unfortunately, he had another commitment, so you get me again. Sorry. But lucky me, I get to recognize another fantastic team. In this case, the Hassel Plus team working in South San Francisco. And we really are getting to the end, guys, so to have your attention and participation would be fantastic. I know the drinks are calling, but stay with us. So the jury applauds this international team's inquisitive and sincere interaction with the community beginning to face the truths of climate change, industrial transformation, significant local assets, the international airport, a biotech campus, the mountain, that beautiful mountain, and their potentials to act upon all of these. Confronted with the Bay Area's, let's face it, extremely frustrating lack of regional coordination and planning, this particular design team adopted a pragmatic and convincing focus on neighborhood-level interventions, but nested these within a set of simple and scalable principles: collect and connect. The jury appreciates the way this design proposal asserts public, human-scaled, open spaces as the social and morphological foundations for resilience, each of these amplified through its connections within a network. The RBD submission foregrounds worthwhile and implementable projects that amplify the potentials of existing assets and current city-led efforts. Its priority projects seek to boost daily quality of life, that's high quality but low emissions life, linking the health of South San Francisco residents to the health of our one planet Earth. These include slow streets that are safer and more enjoyable for children and the elderly to walk, or school grounds opened up for public recreation. At the same time, it builds these spaces' capacities to withstand and recover from the ever-increasing risks of climate and seismic-related shocks and stresses. These include significantly expanding the flow capacity of the creek, or using those same schools as emergency refuges. The members of the jury appreciate the team's embedded and continuous approach to engagement, the way that they invited South San Franciscans and other curious members of the public into a revived downtown shopfront, and in parallel cultivated an online community that can continue to engage in informed conversation about these projects as they evolve. The can-do pragmatism is complemented by an aspect of poetic ecological thinking, a wide-angle approach that links the area's mountain to its city and to its bay as a destination for natural recreation and education, as a propagator and generous sharer of native plant species. It looks up as well as looking down. I'd love to invite the design team to join me on stage. And in particular, welcome Supervisor Dave Pine of San Mateo County to say a few words and present them.
Good evening, everyone. This RBD process has been a ton of fun. Let's recognize that. I mean, I'm a proud elected official, I'm a proud politician, but let me say that hanging out with you designers has been a really fantastic experience for me. I mean, the creativity, the way the designers look at the world, the openness to new ideas is something that we in public office can benefit from tremendously. So it has been a great experience to work with this incredible Hassel Plus team on the Collect and Connect project in the city of South San Francisco, which we belovedly call South City. So South City is divided by Highway 101 and railroads. So on the east side is the biotech hub of the world. And on the east side is a city that hasn't changed very much for a long time. But that's about to change. There's all kinds of development. There's new housing. There's a new Caltrain station. There's new amenities. So this was a perfect time for Hassel Plus to enter the mix and think about what we can do with the Colma Creek watershed and the Colma Creek where it enters the bay. And this team brought fantastic ideas to those challenges. They engaged the community in phenomenal ways, opening a storefront on the old Main Street in town and bringing in all kinds of input, getting the San Bruno Mountain Watch and the Native Plant Society involved, the Historical Society involved, the Youth Institute involved. So they brought all this energy together, and they opened our eyes to the idea that, you know, water doesn't have to be the enemy. And their project, Collect and Connect, it opens up the Colma Creek It creates parkland at the Bay Shore. It makes water an asset, and we have ignored that in South City, and the inspiration they've provided us will have a big impact in South San Francisco and our county. You know, I couldn't be more happy to have worked with such an incredible team, and I just thank them on behalf of all the stakeholders for their really incredible work in South San Francisco. So thank you very much. Oh, the plate. And present this recognition to Mr. Mullaney for his leadership and the Tassel team. Thank you. All right.
Hey, hey, hey! We're on the home stretch here. And definitely not least. My name is Shelly Poot. I used to live here for 27 years before I went to go work for the good president. And, 44. And I'm now the managing director of Healthy People and Thriving Communities for the Natural Resources Defense Council. And what we're trying to do is put people at the center of environmental action. This project, this initiative is all about that. So I am really honored to present this Impact Recognition Award to the Big One Sherwood team. Woo! Islas Creek in San Francisco, this team's study area, it hasn't received quite the same level of attention as some of the other parts of San Francisco, like Mission Bay or the Embarcadero or all these other highfalutin places. But you know what? It's a very important and historic place. There's the port, there's the wastewater treatment plant. Woo! That's very important. There's industrial uses, there's a food hub, and perhaps most importantly, the Islas Creek area supports over 20,000 jobs. It's one of the few remaining affordable places where artists can find places that they can work. And that's really important. It's part of the enormously rich part of this region. The Big One Sherwood team, in partnership with the A. Philip Randolph Institute, a critically important and active community organization in Bayview, saw both the opportunities and the risks of impending changes in Islas Creek. For one, 2/3 of this area, if you go look at the maps, is owned by the city and county of San Francisco. That's unprecedented in many ways. And it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for the public sector to show their commitment to addressing some of the deep and pressing challenges that our community really has to be facing. Whether it is climate change, whether it is retention of good-paying working jobs, or whether it is just being able to keep their communities intact. This is a tremendous opportunity. And the team began with water. They focused on the creek, its water systems, and used that important resource as the armature for a new way of thinking about this area and managing the change that will happen. They organized urbanism around a future that understands that we are going to be flooding, that the sea level is rising, that this area is impacted by earthquakes. That sensitivity to the environment and the place was very impressive to the jury. They also listened to Bayview residents who said, we want more recreation opportunities. We want access to the water. We want a place that we can join and love, and that needs to be different than what we see today. Finally, the team recognized that more than $4 billion of investment is planned in this area. That's a lot of money. And it should be used as a force for good. It should be used as a force to address the urgency of the challenge of climate change. Already, this area is experiencing change from climate, the needs of the community, and to show how resiliency can be a positive force for both San Francisco and the Bay Area as a whole. This project caused a lot of conversation in our morning jury session. It's controversial. And what we hope is that it can be an opportunity, given the important role that the public sector has to play, to address and show that we can address pressing regional problems of climate change, housing affordability, jobs, and inequality. There's a lot here in the Islas Creek project that we hope will carry forward and be an inspiration to all of you. Now, please welcome Big One Sherwood team. Woo! And San Francisco Planning Director John Ram to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. I am thrilled to be here. My name is John Ram. I'm the planning director for the city of San Francisco, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be at this point of the process. I have had the great honor of being part of this process since the very early stages, and I would never have imagined that we'd get to this point with this much excitement, this much success, and this much enthusiasm from the entire region. So I first want to thank RBD. I want to thank Amanda and Allison, the staff, the board, everyone involved. This was an extraordinary process, and we are thrilled to have been a part of it. Woo! Cut that guy off. It was my great honor to actually have spent some time with the Big One and Sherwood team, to be involved with their process, to spend time with them through their research phase, and to also hear them and invite them to present their ideas to my colleagues in City Hall. And what was really exciting about that is that I saw the light bulbs slowly go off as they presented, and realized that while this project is bold, it is ambitious, it is controversial, but hey, we live in San Francisco, what else is new? It is something that is doable and workable over time, and that is the most important thing I can say about this. So thank you all. Congratulations for everything, and congratulations to all of us in this region for this process.
Hey, it's me again. So the good news is I am the last juror to comment. If you are still cold, I just welcome you to shimmy a little bit. It helps warm you up. So I just want to, as John did, but I would like to do it again, just a warm round of applause for all the teams and all the stakeholders that participated with them. So one of the things that I didn't mention when I noted that I was local is that I live near one of the project sites, and I work in several of the other contexts. And so for me, this is not just a passion about the issue, but it's something that is deeply about the place that I call home. And I really believe that if we're going to be talking about what our success can be here, it really has to be rooted in our ability to not just talk the talk, as we are very good at doing here in the Bay Area, but also walking the walk. Our jury, as I mentioned, is super opinionated. And so in addition to all the comments that we gave with each of the teams, we have some overarching comments that we would like to leave you with, because we don't want there to be another competition that has to happen after there is a disaster. We really want these things to take root. So to that end, I want to say that we also want to note that, like, as we've been really positive, but we also acknowledge that this process has not been smooth. It has not been without conflict, and it has not been easy, and that will be true of the road ahead. But if this thing was easy, it would have been done already. So do not run away from that. Turn into it. And with that, we have a couple comments. So the first is that affordability and displacement is the elephant in the room. For any of us who have gone through any part of the Bay Area, this is something that we are presented with every single day. It is a pain point, and it is something that was consistently brought up by a lot of the communities that the design teams engage with. We want to encourage that as these projects move forward, that those issues are engaged more deeply. Some teams did it more than others, but all teams and all projects need to be able to do that, because it is part of the reality that living here in the Bay Area, and if we don't fix it, we are not going to be able to move forward. It's often said, talking about New Orleans, that Katrina merely revealed the disaster that was already in place beforehand. And that it seems to be eerily true of what is going on here in the Bay Area. But as Hank also very passionately laid out at the beginning of the afternoon, resiliency is not an either-or option. We need to engage not only these issues of affordability and displacement, but also the fact that, and one of the jurors commented that Al Gore talks about the fact that we are not dealing with climate change, but climate reality. And that is here, and we cannot be in denial about that. And so both of these things, both the affordability issue and the ecological issue, must be simultaneously engaged. The other comment that we want to make is about the need to embrace the region. All of these teams were assigned localities. Some of them had a greater geographical footprint than others. But the fact is that there are a lot of jurisdictions here, and part of the challenges are the fact that each jurisdiction tends to deal with it in just itself. And so we really need to talk about the fact that there are regional issues, and unless we start to treat this with a system of interdependence, that's not just about housing, work, and transportation, but also ecology, we will not actually make meaningful progress on any of these issues. And that means not only approaching this from a reactive standpoint, but a proactive standpoint. Next point we wanted to make is that ecological well-being is not an infinite reality. The Bay Area has a rich ecological history, and it is a valued resource. It contributes to life here, both in seen and unseen ways, but that is not infinite. Once it disappears, it's gone. Some of it already has disappeared or has changed for the worse. And playing catch-up can only get us so far. And so this is an area where we need to start to put a stake in the sand and be proactive about how we are going to engage it. We also wanted to note that innovative futures require letting go of paradigms of the past. Innovation is a popular word here in the Bay Area, as we all know. But boldness can not only happen if the only frame through which we see change is to tweak or to make simple adaptations to the same system that brought us the affordability crisis, sea level rise, and spatial injustice. One of my favorite quotes is that from Henry Ford, and he says that if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. If we're really going to think different, we have to think outside the box and break the paradigms that we've been operating in. But we do want to note that letting go of the paradigms of the past does not negate the responsibility to acknowledge and atone for the mistakes of the past. Many of the realities that the teams are responding to were caused not just by the climate reality that they're engaging, but has been compounded by mistakes of planning, politics, and engagement. In particular, we as a jury were struck by how many of the teams had to engage with the legacy of transportation planning and the many mistakes that it has left us here in the Bay Area, from 101 to 880 to Highway 37. We believe that atonement, and we use that word intentionally, is not just about the negotiation of present conditions, but actually about reconceiving what it might be if these infrastructures were used as forces for good. We need to move from thinking of them as objects to instruments, and we also believe that adopting this method and operating from an integrated perspective means that we move from thinking about just accommodating the flows of people to putting a stake in the ground where we work towards a future in which mobility and access that is equitable is actually considered to be a basic right. We also believe that resiliency is not just ecological, ethical, and economical, it is also political. Let's be frank, we need governments to step up. We have seen a host of government actors come to the table as part of this. Several of them were here today recognizing the teams, and that is great. But we want to say to the governments, do not think that your work is done. You are needed more now more than ever. And to the rest of us who are not government actors, we also have a role too. We should not be letting them off the hook. That also leads us to be able to note that cross-collaboration needs to be more than just a buzzword. We live in a jurisdictional cornucopia, and it's no accident that many of the teams, as part of their recommendations, suggested jurisdictions coming together and forming joint powers authorities and the like. We have to talk about how that actually happens. It sounds great, but if it doesn't happen, we do not move forward. The old paradigm has been that each jurisdiction has its own pots of money and responsibilities, and we've seen where that has gotten us. We need to think differently, and we need to move to cross-collaboration as a point of action, not just words that we say to make ourselves feel better. Speaking of breaking paradigms, we also need to think about the fact that engagement should be about capacity building and building agency, not just checking the box. It was not always smooth in this process over the course of this entire year, but in our deliberations, the process of how these projects were developed was as important as the outputs that we saw. I don't imagine that any of us value when somebody else makes a decision about our lives for us. Neither do any of the people who live in the communities that are affected here. For all of our talk about cities for all, we cannot create those kinds of cities unless we listen to everyone, but also until we start to provide a space where they can not only share their stories, but that we come to it with the humility to value the stories that are brought and start to actually create opportunities for agency for them to build upon those stories and create the futures that they want. It was noted in the Marin City presentation, this idea of not only learning from us, but also investing in us. And I comment on Ms. Terry's comment about the fact that we need to introduce people to resources to actually make some of this stuff happen. The final point that we wanted to make is that we need to invest in what is shared in order to allow everybody to be able to benefit from the ability for each of us to thrive. This might sound quaint, but this ecosystem that we call home will actually fail if there are only protections for some. And until we actually start to talk about what it means to enter into a system of shared accountability, responsibility, and benefit, this will continue to be a place where we have winners and losers. And we will find ourselves in a place where we're actually responding to a disaster that has wreaked havoc on this place that we all acknowledge for the beauty and the benefit of what it gives. Hank talked in his comments at the beginning about shame, but he also talked about opportunity. And I want to end on this idea of hope. Another favorite quote of mine is from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who says that I am not an optimist, but I'm a prisoner of hope. So as someone who lives here, I want to say that I hope that what we've created here has actually started something that is going to continue and that is going to benefit all of us, regardless of the power or privilege that we step into this room with. Now, let's turn that hope into action. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Liz. I just want to say that as a storyteller, I want to applaud the entire conference today, the entire group. You're telling some amazing stories, and it's at a time when today I just learned that the real cause of the waters rising was too many rocks being tossed into the water. And I say that because I see so many people, we want to argue that with the people. And again, as a storyteller, that is exactly the wrong thing to do. And you are doing the right things here, and I really want to make sure that these stories are told with heart, because that's what changes minds. The storytelling's with heart. The storytelling when you talk about a person and not a place. When you talk about the people walking the trail and not the trail itself. When you talk about the boy at the ocean and not necessarily the shoreline. And when you take your message to the decision makers that matter. I'm going to bring one of them out here right now. His name is Jake McKenzie. He's the chair of the MTC, and I think he's going to want to implement some of these ideas you've got. Am I right?
I don't know.
Jake, take it away.
You're right.
Take it away.
This is quite a challenging assignment, frankly. I've never had to speak in a hangar before with the doors open, looking over to City by the Bay as the sun sets. I'm actually quite distracted by the whole thing. But fortunately, I was given talking points by Amanda Brown-Stevens. Well, Amanda didn't know me well enough because I never follow talking points. That's not in my nature. But since I was just challenged as a member of working government to step up, I believe our last speaker requires me to step up. So I step up. I step up as chair of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. Somebody asked me today, what's MTC? And I said, well, it's the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, of course. What do? We distribute lots and lots of money. That's one thing we do, yes. But just calm down, calm down. What you also learned from the last speaker is that we live in a very complex environment. We live with a very complex form of government. One little factoid, in the San Francisco Bay Area, in the 9 counties, there are 28 separate transit agencies. 28. And then you start thinking about how many flood control districts there are, how many water agencies are. There's 101 cities, and I'm here to tell you that there's an awful lot of elected officials in these 101 cities who really love local control. It's a mantra, and we are engaged in what's going to be a very interesting time over the next number of years as we attempt to realize the visions that you have just had put in front of you. Because these visions are going to require a degree of regional cooperation that has not existed up until this point in time. We in MTC, working with our colleagues in the Association of Bay Area Governments, have just merged our staffs. We're going to be trying over the next couple of years to merge our governing bodies. You may think, well, why would I even bother talking to you about that? Well, I'm here to tell you that unless this happens, and unless we get some form of logical regional government in these 9 Bay Area counties, you're going to be a long time waiting for these visions to be realized. And that wasn't even in my own notes that I wrote to talk to you about. The formal part of my presentation is very simple. In Plan Bay Area 2040, we have an action plan. The action plan calls for us in MTC to go ahead and examine actions to implement solutions to housing problems, to economic problems, and to resilience problems. In the document, and you know us bureaucrats, we follow our documents. We have process that we have to follow. It calls out resilient by design. The case studies that you have developed will become, and I can promise you this, they will become part of that action plan. That's the correct response. But what I cannot tell you is exactly the process by which this will happen. It has to go through, as you can imagine, the committees and the commission and the votes and the discussions. Fortunately, my executive director, Mr. Heminger, isn't here tonight, so he can't hear me talk about this, but I will give you my personal commitment that as a result of the work that you have done, the studies that you have had jury selected will be coming in front of MTC, and I will personally make every effort to make sure that they're part of the action plan. That is the future.
Jake McKenzie made a commitment. Now then, our next person on this stage, he wears a lot of hats. But I specifically, and he's a dear friend of the family. I want to say that first and foremost. Please put your hands together and please hold him to the fire as well. His name is Zach Wasserman. He's the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission Chair. And put your hands together, and again, let's see what he's going to promise.
Good evening, all. I want to start by thanking you all for your perseverance. You're still here. I also want to recognize what a wonderful event this is, not simply recognizing and celebrating the work that has been done, but in this gorgeous facility with all of these plans, surrounded by all of these casks of wonderful wine. What could be better? Now, I'm holding on to my glass of wine, not simply because I like drinking wine, and I do, but because those of you who either have had or still have glasses of wine, I want you to look at it for a moment. And above the name, it's got an image. And for those of you who are slightly to the left physically, you can look out and see this image there, slightly obscured by fog. It is the bridge and the outline of San Francisco. And the reason I bring that to your attention is imagery is very important. The imagery done on these poster boards, the imagery done on the videos, the imagery done on the landscapes is what in fact will communicate what we are doing, what we must do to the people we need to reach. And they are legion, and they are many audiences. I want to point out two of my favorite things in this room. There are wonderful competitors, there are wonderful projects. One is over in the far right, and it is Y2 Cities and Communities. It is a project done by the youth. And do not forget that the children will lead us. All of us live in offices and houses where we separate our garbage. That is not because our elected leaders were wise. It's just not. It is because there were some wise people who motivated school children to go home and say to their parents, what are we doing to our earth? How are we going to preserve it? And they won, and we have that separation. It's not enough. On the left side, on the Coliseum project, the San Leandro Bay project, there's a game that kids and adults can play, that gets you involved, that starts getting you to understand what the realities are and gets you invested in what we can do. That is what all of us need to do. When I became chair of BCDC 6 years ago, give or take, I said, we need to embark on a campaign. It's sort of a rolling 5 to 10 year campaign. The campaign is, how can we adapt the Bay and the Bay Area to preserve our natural and built environment? What should we do given priorities and unforeseen consequences as much as we can probe them? And oh yes, how are we going to pay for it? This challenge, Resiliency by Design, presents a terrific example, a set of examples, a set of projects that will let us move that campaign forward in a very significant way. Amanda, when she started this presentation, what seems like a long time ago now, said, we're in the home stretch. That's not true. We are just beginning. We need to develop the organization, the champions, the sponsors, to move these projects forward. And
so excited that we're done. Glad to be here. I've got two important announcements. One is that we're almost done with the program. Two is that I'm going to talk about money. Everybody loves money. Okay, you know that California, your projects, they're at a critical juncture, and that's because California does not provide dedicated funding for climate resilience planning. It's insane, but it's got to happen. But the business community, the Bay Area Council, we've been so inspired by this event, by this challenge, that we are dedicated to raising $10 million between now and September at the Global Climate Action Summit to fund climate resilience projects around California. So, If you're interested in staying involved and learning more, and I hope every one of these projects are, go to resilientcal.org to sign up for updates, and I'll see you in September. Thank you.
I heard $10 million, Adrian. Did you hear $10 million? I heard $10 million. By September, you better believe it. Allison Brooks and Amy Hutzel, please come on up here and say a little something.
You want me to start? Yeah, you start.
All right, folks. Hello. I'm standing between me and the dance floor, so let's get this party started in a minute. Enough talking. But there's some things we have to do. First off, well, we want to thank everybody, but we have to celebrate some really key people who have been instrumental in making this whole thing happen. And those are the staff of Resilient by Design. So I want these ladies, and they're all ladies, because we know women know how to get shit done. So we have Amanda Brown-Stevens, our fearless leader, managing director, Hannah Goldev, Tira Okamoto, I know your name, Zoe Siegel, and Marisa Villarreal, who have really been phenomenal. And they're all wearing jumpsuits. I don't know if you recognize that, but that was the uniform tonight. Let's give them a round of applause. One more person we have to make sure we thank, and when she hasn't gotten thanked enough, is Amy Chester from Rebuild by Design. Where is Amy? Without her, she's been really instrumental. We want to thank Amy for her leadership in really helping us get this started. So thank you so much, Amy. I just want to say a few words about where we're going from here. Everyone's been so phenomenal. I think that, as a next step, I think we all need to just take a rest, one. But just for 5 minutes, Hank, 5 minutes. And then we're going to assess, we're going to evaluate, and we're going to think about, do some thinking about where we go from here. And we're going to need all of your help in that process, because as you heard from our speakers prior to this, our leaders, we want to take these ideas and we need to move these ideas forward. And we also need a new model for how we're working together in the future with our communities and working together to solve these big problems. So we're all in this together moving forward, and I hope you'll commit with me to finding the path for these projects and making them happen, these ideas, and proliferating these ideas throughout our region and beyond. So thank you so much, and I'm going to hand it over to Amy Hutzel.
Thank you. And I had a few words in mind to end this, but I just want to end it with a huge thank you to Allison Brooks. And she made this thing happen from the beginning. She has stood there through this project, and it is not easy to be a strong woman, and she has made it look easy, and I have learned a ton from her, and I just want to thank her and all of the women who made Resilient by Design happen.
That one too, Amy Hutzel. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Let's have some fun. Let's dance, let's drink, let's party, and enjoy each other's company. All right.